What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? I have another patient interview here with the Wittmer Rejuvenation Clinic. Today we are welcoming Jeff Bosley out of Omaha, Nebraska, currently residing in Omaha, Nebraska. Jeff, thank you so much for jumping on with us today, man.
Hey, man, thanks. It's awesome to be here. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We were already chatting a little bit before we got the camera rolling, and it seems like this is going to be a really good conversation. I already appreciate your this so far. So we do like to get to know our guests a little bit. So why don't you just enlighten us, give us our 60-second elevator pitch about who Jeff is.
60 seconds. Long story short, I was raised in Idaho, a small town in Idaho, grew up there playing soccer, doing a little bit of rodeo, did the cliche, went off to college thing, did that for almost 4.5 years. It wasn't my thing. I took a year off, went back to college because that year off sucked, and then did college for probably another 3 or 4 or 5 years after that. And then finally joined the military. And in the military, I was an Army Special Forces Green Beret. Did that for a handful of years. Got massively injured. And then after that, I was a firefighter for 2 years. And then after that, I decided to chase my childhood dream because I had a divorce and a dog. So I had nothing to lose. So I did the very, very cliche thing, packed the dog in the car. And that's all I took with me to California. Lived there for 8, 9, 10 years, doing the whole Hollywood actor wannabe thing. And it went well enough that I could move away from that soul-sucking location and move now with the woman of my dreams in Omaha amongst peace and relaxation. That's the elevator pitch of Jeff Bosley.
Dude, that's awesome. And we were touching on it before camera, but for those of you that don't know, I'm from Nebraska. So if anybody has respect for the peace and quiet that Nebraska brings, it's me.
My first day here, and I know you'll appreciate this, we were like merging houses, and we were just in a regular old neighborhood. I still have my Idaho pickup truck. I'll never get rid of that. I had it in Los Angeles, and I was pulling away from her brother-in-law's place, and at a stop sign, I was waiting for a tractor, like full-on tractor. You know, in a residential neighborhood. We weren't out in the farmland. We were in a residential neighborhood waiting for big-ass John Deere to get out of our way. And I was like, I'm home. This is it.
Yep. That's the spot. That's hilarious. Real quick story, too. My wife's from Staten Island, New York, and the first time I brought her to Nebraska, there's just cows everywhere, and she had never just seen cows. And so she was like, who's watching them? And I was like, watching them do what? Like, they don't do anything. And then she was like, but, like, can't they just run away? And I'm like, no, there's a fence. And I was just like, you know what? This is going to take a couple of years for you to get used to this. But we're good now. We've been together now for 7 years. I think she's closely gotten the concept of it. But anyway, man.
Who's watching the cows? Her dad's got a giant farm. I'll definitely pass that on.
That's awesome. Well, awesome, Jeff. Well, of course, we're here to talk about you as a patient with the Wittmer Rejuvenation Clinic and some of your experiences there. Why don't you go ahead and just tell us a little bit about what prescription you are on currently, and why don't you go ahead and start that off with your age and such, so we can get a little more context as to where you're at there.
Yeah, for sure. I'm 44, rolling on 45-year-old average male. I have a huge background. I'm like 6'6", so I've always been interested in health and fitness. Not because I'm 6'6", but because I was 6'6", I looked like Ichabod Crane most of my life. And I hated that. I hated being tall and skinny. So I was drawn to health and fitness by means of Stallone and Schwarzenegger and the whole cliche 9 yards. And so I've always been good, bad, or indifferent in and around fitness in some way, shape, or form. And I've fallen for a lot of the bro science, as many people probably have, but it wasn't until I got in my later years where I started actually putting value to quality of what I was doing as far as the whole package. And then when you get older, pushing late 30s, that's when things start to go to crap. And I think, and part of my angle, I guess, is one of my plugs right here is I was in the Army Special Forces, and there's massive amounts of studies of just our whole entire endocrine systems are firing at a million miles. Our fight or flight, and it sounds really arrogant, but our fight or flight is pretty much operational 24/7. And there's massive amounts of studies that are still being done with various tasks, or there's various organizations I work with that just show these operators are running at fight or flight so much that their endocrine system is just crushed. And then you add the aging process to that, and that's just a disaster. And so via some whining on social media is what I ended up crossing paths with Wittmer, and they put me on testosterone through all their various studies. And it was no big surprise. Mine was crushed basically based on my age, and also based on just the sheer amount of stress and taxing I'd put my body through with this silly job. And so I would have to guess it's been about 4 years now I've been with them, trying and dealing with that and bringing me back to a level of normalcy.
Awesome, man. And I know we're going to touch a little bit more on, you know, your previous field of life. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about, you know, what it's potentially done for you personally. We'll get into that here in just a second. But one of the questions I have been asking is, was there a specific moment around that 4 year ago plan where you were like, man, something's not right here. I need to get, you know, I need to get this looked at. Can you tell a little bit more about that story?
For sure. Yeah, it was because I've spent, whether it was I came first in the chicken or the egg, what came first? Jeff came first before all these careers I chose that required elite levels of going in at 11 obsessions. And every one of those, I started later. Like I started special forces later. I was almost in my 30s when I went. I was a firefighter after that in my almost 40s, I think. And I've always, men and women like me, I think, good, bad, or indifferent, sometimes for the worst, are always going in at 11. And when suddenly I couldn't anymore, obviously we all hit an age where we go, we can't run like we're 18 anymore. But it was almost not literally, but it was almost an overnight, like running into a wall of, I knew what I was capable of, and I was mitigating, or I was managing my expectations to go, okay, I can't do what I used to do, a million miles per hour into my 40s and 50s and 60s and so on. But just this sheer on-off switch, like it didn't taper at all. I was just like suddenly like a shell of my former self as far as, you know, energy, down to the libido, down to all these things. And I was like, well, I've done some stuff with my life, my mind, body, and soul. And suddenly I can't even do a fraction of that. And that's where I just, because of whatever health and fitness awareness I'd cultivated over the years, I just said, this is just wrong. This shouldn't be like this. Like I actually, ironically, to use an injection metaphor, I felt like something had been injected into me that shut me down. Like it felt so, as seen on TV, like do this and it'll fix this. I felt like somebody gave me the opposite of that. Like at night, my roommate was injecting me with some sort of like soul shut down serum. And that was the awareness of just like the fact I'd been here and I knew what I'd done. I tested myself and I had passed these checkpoints in life and careers, and suddenly like just getting out of bed, like it was just like, I was like, I'd established a spectrum. So I actually knew what I was capable of. I wasn't just like hypothesizing, and to not even feel or function like, this sounds really cocky, but like your average Joe. I was like, I used to be an 11 badass, and now I don't even feel like I can function like an average Joe, no matter how. You can't mentally willpower yourself into a phase when your body, your endocrine system is not firing, let alone cooperating. And that was my awareness. It was like, I'm barely functioning as an average dude. And that was where my biggest awareness was. Just, it was, you could encompass that with all the energy stuff, not energy like caffeine. A lot of people, I think, correlate energy with like a stimulant, but I just meant like will to live. That sounds really depressing, but it was just that, like that will it was just gone.
Yeah. I think for me, I had two coming to Jesus moments, I would say, when it came to this stuff. And, you know, I've been with the clinic now for just under a year, and my results have been absolutely phenomenal. And we're going to talk a little bit about the different routes you went, which is kind of what I'm leading to here. But I have a daughter she just turned 3, so she'll be 4 this coming September. And I remember within the first year of her being born, I just didn't have that oomph, right? And I'll never forget, and I was, you know, we've talked about it on other interviews, and I'm going to touch on it here, but, you know, you start thinking that this is just my life now, right? So I had a kid. I wasn't probably sleeping as much as I had been. I was really busy. My career was in a good place where that was busy. And I'll just never forget, I went golfing one day, and I used to love golf. I still love golf, but I went and I came home. My wife said, "Did you have fun?" And I just remember kind of being like, I don't know. I don't know if I had fun, because it was just like I was at such a low impact of life where it was just like I felt like I should be enjoying this. I'm not even sure if I did enjoy it. And so this is where I'm gonna take this now to a real question. So then I actually went the antidepressant route for a little while, and I tried antidepressants for about 18 months, and I'll tell you this, bro, it was actually worse.
Yeah.
You know, there'd be little peaks of light here and there. Oh, I'd feel a little bit better here, feel a little bit better there. But it always came with negative side effects. One specifically, like my male side was not working correctly, and that was a big problem that early in my marriage. And stuff like that. And anyways, I bring all that around. Now I've been at the clinic for just under a year, and like we're the complete opposite, bro. I'm full of life. I love golfing. I cry when I watch movies. Like I'm into this. Like I'm actually feeling my life. And so I'm curious, with your past mental struggles, I just touched a little bit on mine. Did you have some struggles that you went through before kind of going the testosterone route?
Yeah, like I absolutely did. I definitely was kind of the same thing where I would rather break a bone because you fix it and it's there and it's something you could physically see. There's an x-ray that shows it's broke. You know, cause, effect, finished, you're done. But when it started to come to the mind and soul part of it, not soul in a spiritual way, unless you want to go that route, but like the mind and soul, the body, you can, obviously we're talking about the body with the endocrine system and all the hormones, etc. But like when I felt dead, and I don't, like you were saying, you just played golf and you just like came home, you're like, bleh. You know, and it's not to be dark. Like I'm sure there are examples of, but I am not one of them. But I'm sure there are examples of blah is a dark, sad place somebody needs checked on. It wasn't that. It just was like a lifelessness. Like like while you were talking, the word that came to mind was autopilot. And I don't have kids, but for me, the mental thing, like I had a great friend whose kids I watched. I kind of was like a pseudo godfather to. And I just was like, I shouldn't feel this dead. Yes, kids are soul-sucking, like succubuses, but I should at least have something to start the day with. And it's weird because it feeds itself. The more you feel blah, the more you feel depressed about it. And, you know, whether it's clinical depression or just the literal definition of it, being in a depressed state. And it was foreign to me, like to not be able to fix something like, okay, bone broken, put cast on, bone grows, you're fine. But that was for me where it became mental, is that it was the first time I had encountered something that I couldn't, sounds like so G.I. Joey, but it was something I couldn't punch, shoot, or fix with my own bare hands. And that became cyclical in its downward spiral of literal and metaphorical depression. I actually did call the clinic at one point. I'd already been with the clinic asking about antidepressants, and if somebody tells me to put a dandelion in some random orifice and it'll fix a problem, I'll roll my eyes, but I will genuinely entertain it, because I don't care if it's placebo or clinically proven. I will do what it takes to fix myself. But if it's something I can do, quote unquote, naturally, I just, for the same reason, like when you said you're on antidepressants, I remember calling the doc and just going, I fail to believe this is the solution. I'm not anti this or pro that. I just was like, I would like to think whatever designed us had it pretty good and figured out. And just like Doc Wittmer mentions, he always uses the metaphor, like when your eyes go to crap, you get glasses. Things wear down, you know? So I was like all for that. And I'm all for mitigating the reversal process. But when it got to the mental aspect, it just floored me that I couldn't woo-saw my way out of this, happy thought my way out of it, watch all the happy motivational memes, you know, day in and day out, and it didn't do squat. And I didn't want the side effects, you know, of antidepressants. And I didn't feel depressed per se. Like, I don't know about you, but like there's a cliche with what it is. Like it's a will to live, but it also just didn't feel like a depressed state. It just felt like a state that was just less than existence. Like your golf, for example, was perfect. Like I don't golf. I think I would feel dead golfing, but like I felt, I relate to how you were talking about with golf, where you're just like, you know, and you just sit on that autopilot.
Autopilot is the great way to put it. It's just like, I was just always here. I remember within that same week, my wife was getting after, you know, she was stressed out with the new kid, and we just had a lot going on. And I remember kind of laying into me as a good loved one should. And I just remember like looking at her, and like I had no reaction. I had no I don't even want to say I had an emotional connection in that moment of like what was actually happening, because I was just almost flatlining all the time. I was just kind of like you said.
Which is what you hear, ironically, about antidepressants, is that they neutralize you anyway. And so that made me even more skeptical of that, because I was like, I don't want to enhance my autopilot. You know, I don't want to become manic. You know, you hear horror stories of people that are manic taking stuff your body isn't produce. You know, this is a cheesy segue, but taking stuff or pills that aren't inherently what your body is lacking of. You know, like blocking and inhibiting, and like that just worries me. That just doesn't seem, it just doesn't match in my wiring. But that's the problem, is it's just a downward spiral. No matter what the cause of it, it's just that downward spiral. That autopilot feeds itself, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And God forbid people don't attend to it. You know, like you, me, I've referred a lot of people to Wittmer, and they're like they said, it was like they want. It's almost like an as seen on TV. Like, oh my God, you know, like for only 1995, you feel like a new man. And I
Right.
just was like, you know, and it's surprising that we just get fed the quick fixes and the antidepressants and all that, and it yeah, a weird autopilot. I'm going to stick with that. It's absolutely a weird autopilot that you can't turn off.
Yep. So with those conversations that you do have, you know, with people in your life, how does that conversation go as far as getting them to the point of approaching this, you know, potentially getting their blood work done and seeing kind of where their levels are at? What is that conversation?
It's weird, because as I've grown, I've got away, and I think this is definitely applicable to, you know, Wittmer, you, and anybody at Wittmer, as far as like public image, if you will. But I used to be like I was one of the taboo people. Not that I gave a crap, but it wasn't until I remember explicitly Doc Wittmer's conversation about when your eyes go south, you get glasses. You fix the problem that's falling apart. And the way my conversation went with specifically the person I'm thinking of right now is he has an extreme background like I have, and he felt similar, dead inside an autopilot. And I'm not saying he and I have a better reason to feel this way or more of a reason. You know, everybody has their own reason to do what they need to do or come to Wittmer, etc. But we'd run our bodies and our bodies, minds, souls, and endocrine systems into the ground. And he had a similar background, and we were just kind of basically complaining about being on this miserable autopilot that just was this weird soul suck that, you know, we had known ourselves to be able to mentally willpower ourselves through some of the most hellacious experiences, and we could barely willpower ourselves to get, you know, to lunch. And I joined with Wittmer before he had, and I had told him, I was like, I used the eyeglass metaphor, and I just put my own spin on it, just going, if you're deficient in something, fix it. You're not going out to, you know, and this is a little intense, I guess, but I was like, you're not going out to win the Mr. Olympia, nor, you know, quit basing it on taboos, 80s, you know, roid rage movies, and just, it's, at the end of the day, do you want to die happy and with some energy, and maybe have some energy for like some activity with your loved one, and energy to take care of your kids? And it's not energy in the caffeinated sense, but just like will, you know, and that kind of thing. Right. And I told him, I was like, what outside of, I honestly, it's not like I was trying to convert him or anything, but outside of, I could not think of a reason, nor could he. I was like, tell me why. Why would, if somebody said this is deficient, you need this, I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's vitamin C. Vitamin D is a huge one. Like, people, when they run their labs, people are vitamin D deficient, especially as us remote people who sit in basements all day long, not getting the sun. So you go take 20 mgs or 20 microgram or 20,000 units of vitamin D from Amazon. Why does it need to be any different from this weird taboo thing, or that people have spun or blown out of proportion? You know, I just said, I go, what do you have to lose? You know, and I just told him, I was like, if you run your labs, and the lab, I don't care if it's testosterone, vitamin D, I don't care if you have rickets, they will tell you to take this thing to fix this thing. Take the thing to fix this thing. Your body produced it before. You're not trying to achieve something you weren't before. You're trying to just get to what you should be. You know, like I think Wittmer says a lot. You don't need to be dead just because you're 40.
Nope.
He has kids
100%.
and a life and a family and everything. I go, there's no reason you should feel dead. And if the labs are wrong, okay, you have another issue to address. But I guarantee with our lives and your background and your age, I'm betting money that this will be a deficiency you need remedied. And I just was pretty straightforward to him. He's like, fine. And he went, he actually got, I was really jealous of the guy because his stuff was like lickety split. He's like, I feel great. And I was like, it's been one day. You know, I was like,
that's hilarious. That's exactly
how the pitching was. You punk.
That's awesome. That's actually exactly, I was going to lead into that question. You know, for me, I was teasing Jeff after I started my prescription. I was like, whoa, like the next day. And he was like, oh, he's like, it doesn't quite work like that. Like, let's give it a couple of days.
Exactly.
But I would love to hear, you know, like you said, you've been on prescription now for about 4 years.
Yeah.
You know, you touched on some of the taboo stuff. Same thing with me. So I've been into fitness and I've actually been in the weightlifting space and things like that. So my brain even immediately went to like, cool. So now I'm going to walk around like this stiff jock that like can't move.
Yep.
That's clearly not the case at this point. So now being 4 years in, you know, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your experiences and what you were feeling and what you continue to feel now 4 years later?
Yeah. Well, like the first one I'll hammer out of the way right off the bat, which I'm sure nobody wants to talk about, is like libido and sex drive. Like you shouldn't, no male or female should feel exhausted in that front as far as, I mean, there's a billion factors, but if you're with an amazing woman whom like I'm with, and you're like, you know, like Doc Wittmer says, and you're not dead, you know, I'm in my 40s, I shouldn't be dead. You should have some energy for cardio or will to do the cardio in air quotes. And so that was one of the things that I noticed because like I'm a very preoccupied, bordering on probably OCD workaholic, but that was still an area in my, I don't know, overall health that never was deficient, but all of a sudden I could have given a crap. And I was like, no, I can't go from like, I wasn't like a deviant, but I went from like what I would consider healthy to like dead. And I was like, no, that shouldn't be that way. And for me, like you said, in the gym, like that was a big thing. But it's nice to have these check marks, I guess, because I had such an extreme, I've proven to myself what I could do with extreme experiences in my careers. I've proven what I can do to myself and what I dabbled in the bodybuilding world. So I knew what I was capable of on these sides of the spectrums. And so I had those almost like as reference markers. And so I used those as like should be's. Like I should be able to do this or at least be close. Yeah, I don't care how much you inject. I don't think I could do this Green Beret crap again. Like that was hard and I was a little bit younger. There's no amount that can change my soul on that. But I should be closer to it than I am now. And that's where I noticed once I started getting on, once we got dose and timing and, you know, like there was a lot of, I don't know, repair to happen, you know, to get saturated. Like you said with other Jeff, it wasn't like overnight, but it was, I had a reference point where, like you said, I wasn't like all of a sudden I was like, I'm going to win Mr. Olympia. You know, that's the bullcrap taboo stuff. But I had the reference point of youth and not the fountain of youth bullcrap that people try to sell you as fitness influencers, but the reference of some vitality, you know, whether it came to the gym, 6 hours, 4 hours of sleep going to the gym, I'm still going to be tired, but it's a different tired than when your endocrine system is deficient and in our case, testosterone. And so that's where I noticed yeah, your strength might go up, but it's a whole package. If your endocrine system is firing the way it should be, you're kicking out the testosterone like it should be, it's gonna help your attitude. So you're gonna be more motivated to work out. You're gonna be more motivated to challenge yourself to maybe lift heavier. So yeah, people might go, oh, he's on TRT, he's lifting heavier. Maybe he's just motivated as hell because his head's out of the clouds. You know, there is a strength aspect, I'm sure, down to the chemical levels, but it's this whole package. And I noticed it definitely in the gym. I noticed it more in my libido, my sex life. And as far as like that autopilot turned off, you know, I don't know about you, but I don't want to live a life of Prozac, of this. I want to live a life, nobody wants the downs, but I'd rather live a life of this than this Prozac dead autopilot thing. And I'd rather have the peaks of an awesome workout, the peaks of a great sex life with my loved one, you know, the peaks of just mentally being out of the clouds. And those feed each other, just as they feed each other negatively, they feed each other on the up end too. Like, so if you're having a great workout, maybe you're gonna have a great sex life, or maybe you had a great like cardio with your loved one, you're gonna have a great workout. Your head's gonna be out of the clouds. I mean, it's all synergistic, and that is the thing that carried on, because those were my barometers. Was definitely the gym. Like I said earlier, like in 90, when was I in junior high? It feels like many millennia. 1990 was my first year of junior high. So that's where you're self-conscious, everybody's making fun of you. And I was almost the same height I am now, but probably like 150 pounds lighter. And so I've massively been very aware of fitness and health, because I was unhealthy, obsessed with it way early, because I just did it to get bigger. Like I had no desire other than just sheer aesthetics. But so that was in my life. And so that was an amazing constant barometer that I could reference back to. Like I kept going to the gym, even though I was on autopilot dead. And those were the worst workouts ever. I'm not saying, like, again, you're not going to get, like you said, jacked. You're not going to go into the Mr. Olympia. Everybody's going to be different on how they respond. But again, the doses are therapeutic. These aren't abusive levels. And they're going to bring you back to that original, what is anybody that's in a car, the OEM, the original equipment from the manufacturer, it's going to bring you back to OEM levels. And maybe you're deficient in your youth, who knows? But that was the big things, is just libido, will, that autopilot turned off in the gym. Absolutely different. The gym was the biggest one, because that's the only thing I've had as a constant in my life. Whether when career went to shit or a relationship went to shit, the gym was the only thing, you know, and so that was always my reference. And I'm not like an elite bodybuilder, but I've lived it for so long. That was my reference point. A long
and when
answer,
you're used to, you're great. There's a lot of gold in there. When you're used to performing at a specific level for so long, and then, I actually, this week is another kind of quote unquote litmus test for me, but the reason I originally got on was everything we've just talked about. But one of the things is I would go to the gym, and dude, I would be wrecked for like days. Like I could not, and like I'm not even lifting crazy anymore like I used to. I would just go in, do some pretty boy stuff, and then the next day I could not hardly move. Where this week, like I said, I've been on for just under a year. This week alone, I've played in I play basketball as my cardio hobby. So I played like 4 basketball games. I've weight trained 2 or 3 times. Like I'm like getting after it. And today, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not a superhero. Like I got to today and I'm like, okay, I need to rest today. Like I need to not do anything. But what I was telling my wife this morning, I used to wake up and I would just hurt everywhere. Like my knees would hurt, my back would hurt, everything would hurt. Yeah. Dude, I woke up this morning and like, don't get me wrong, I'm trashed. Like my body's trashed, but it feels like it was trashed like back when I was training or back when I was doing who I was, or I'm like, it's like I don't know what you want to call it, like the strength gaining trash. Or I'm like, I'm sore, I'm beat up, but it's not painful. Where I had gotten to the point, it was on the other side where I was like, dude, I was just in pain all the time. I felt like crap all the time. And the last thing I wanted to touch on that you hit on in your super long answer that I thought was great.
No, I'm so sorry. I've had so much caffeine today. This is like my third thing today, and I'm just like jacked.
Well, the libido thing, and I want to touch on my story quick. We were joking about how I have 2 kids, a third on the way. People from the outside would joke and say, like, you clearly have no problem in that area. Yeah. From a performance issue, I did not have that. I clearly don't have performance issues when it comes to some stuff. But I will say the connection side of it was missing. And like that drive to as a dude, get after it a little bit, right? Like I was not there, even though I was making kids and like everything was working as it was supposed to. And what it's done, I mean, obviously the sex life has been an amazing step in that direction, but also like the relationship and emotional connection now me and my wife have been able to grow into. I think that's even like better than super hot sex is great, but like, what's really great is having life and like really wanting to get after it every day, and then building a relationship with my wife that's based on passion, that's based on sex, that's based on emotion, all the stuff that you kind of mentioned that you start autopiloting through. And so, that's all. I think that's the thing
is if you take like the crazy hormonal 14 and 15-year-old boy, you can almost, the flip side of what you're saying is all they do are make bad mistakes. Their head's completely up their backside because they're just a raging ball of hormones. So they're disconnected from the world. They're a-holes to their parent. It's me. This is what I'm talking about, is me. All of a sudden, the great, well-behaved kid is suddenly an a-hole, just all these things because hormones are so spiked and out of whack. So what's the antithesis of that? Obviously, completely gone, and then you're dead to the world and have no will. So what's the sweet spot of that? You're not an a-hole. I mean, obviously, if you have pre-existing just tendencies to be a jerk, or if you're a one-night stand D-bag, I don't judge, I don't care. But the middle ground between those two extremes is, it just baffles me that there's so much stigma to be fought with a chemical. Like, again, it sucks because it sucks that I have a science background and I did so much pre-med and have so much medical knowledge to know that chemicals are just so fascinatingly responsible, and good and bad, responsible for your headspace. But anytime you doubt that, look at an a-hole 15-year-old who's just spiked on all their hormones, just going through the roof. So what's the opposite of that? A dead mid-40s guy with all those things in the toilet. It doesn't mean they're depressed. Maybe it does, but it doesn't mean they're clinically depressed per se, or need Prozac or whatever. And so what if you could get those things up? And it was beautiful, and it was very lovey-dovey, but I truly mean that. I'm truly agreeing with you on that. Is if you're an a-hole, like some 15-year-old, you're not going to be connected to your parents. You're going to hate that they're making you do college applications. You're going to be a turd to your younger sister because your hormones are crazy. So what if they're in check? You're going to be a nicer person. You're going to sleep better. You're going to treat the people you love better. Like you said, everything you said, I don't want to bastardize by repeating it, but you're going to be way more connected. So yeah, everybody goes, oh, I'm going to feel youthful and vibrant. But that youth and that vibrancy transcends all the cliche, oh, I'm going to bench more, or, oh, I'm going to be just this raging ball of hormone bed, porn star. It's like, no. If you take those when you get older, that's the one thing I think a lot of people, I wish somehow was part of the prescription of TRT, is that they need to realize the big picture bull crap that I would roll my eyes at if a 44-year-old man was telling me, going, oh, whatever. But when you're 44, those connections do matter. Your tendons and ligaments that are broken do matter. So the stuff you can control and set yourself up for success. We're not looking for some weird 150 octane fuel here. We're just looking to go back to 93. Our ligaments are still going to be effed up, but it doesn't mean I can't be connected to my loved one and also get out of bed. And that was very beautiful. And I'm not, like I said, it was exactly that, when you're dead inside, that impacts everything, not just the cool gym bro bull crap. When you're dead inside, autopiloting, it's going to affect your kids. I don't have kids, but I always use the justification, I broke my back. I have so many knee surgeries and metal and plates in my body. I always use this metaphor of if I had kids, I love kids, I want to be able to bend over and pick them up and play with them. If I can physically muscle through that, like you said, a good workout. But if it causes the difference in this is so vet cliche, but hurt versus injured, if you're injured doing that, chemically, or if it literally injures you to pick up don't get me wrong, there's no amount of TRT that could not make me tired hearing about your 3 kids. You shouldn't be an 80-year-old man around them, and I think it's, if people get in this weird headspace, it's this big package, and you put it so beautifully that all that stuff matters, and it's a little huggy. And if some guy in his mid-40s just feels like he's in the tank toilet and he wants to get on TRT and it fixes his numbers and he wants to still go to the club like some embarrassing 44-year-old in Miami, have at it, bro. But my touchy-feely answer matches yours, is this stuff matters in the big picture for sure, way more than that gym bro crap.
Yeah. And that was honestly between me and you and now everybody else who's listening to this, it had nothing to do with aesthetics for me. I was at the point in my life where I'm in my mid to late 30s now, and I just had gotten to a point where I'm I'm not going to be that jacked 21-year-old anymore. So it wasn't even really to me, it was not about the aesthetic side. It was about I just did not feel like myself. And now,
for sure,
9 months in, I feel like myself. My parents, my loved ones, my siblings, they can all see
Yeah.
okay, he's back now. We're not losing it.
Yeah.
Like, he's good. We're back. So,
well, and that's I won't
really
go on a long tangent, but that was another marker for me as far as, because I have this weird, I probably do need to let go of the aesthetics a little bit more because, you know, God forbid I am aging. But that was another marker where all of a sudden all the food weighing and all the stuff I was doing actually didn't match. It wasn't getting me the same results. Again, manage expectations. I'm not going to look 80 and be shredded. Like, you know, the body is what it is. But it was like, wait, I've done these extreme things. I'm weighing my food. I'm living like a bodybuilder. But no matter what, no matter how much what I do, it's not resulting in the same aesthetic. So again, it doesn't. Yeah. Aesthetics shouldn't matter, but they can be a marker if you have a historical reference point. And that was another
100%.
giant one. Like, what the hell? It's like one morning I woke up and just like went to Plato Town, you know, and I was just like, I swear to God, it shouldn't be this way.
Right.
But
and I live in a healthy household too. My wife's a nutrition coach, so like. That's kind of, I guess, why I accepted the way it was, because I knew I wasn't eating like shit. Like, I knew I was eating the right things. Yeah. I'm not a big drinker. I don't do a lot of that kind of stuff. And so it was like, you know, I just kind of had accepted that, you know.
Yeah, and that's the problem, is that people just assume this is it. And that's horrible. That's like depressing. That in and of itself is depressing.
Exactly, you know? Bro. And I think that was one of my first results, was about 90 days in. All of a sudden I caught myself in the mirror and I was like, hey, bro. Wait a second. Like, we're back, right? We're back. And I'm not a big scale guy. I have been taking before and after pictures just because I wanted just personal reference of like what changes are this going to cause and stuff like that. And dude, I looked at them the other day and the scale has not changed. I'm 215. I'm just sitting at 215. But the way I like am fundamentally built. Oh my gosh. And like, I'm not doing anything special, bro. I'm still not really counting my food. I watch what I eat and I eat healthy and stuff. Yeah. But just the composition and how. So what I'm getting at is my metabolism. That was one thing that, like, within 90 days, I was like, whoa. Like, my shirt started feeling a little different, stuff like that. Yeah. Like I said, I didn't lose a ton of weight or anything, but it's just like how I was. My physique would just change really quickly.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, with your physique and what you're talking about, like the aesthetic, like, why not? Like, I don't know if this is probably the best thing to say. Edit this out if you need to. But like, if all the naysayers of this stuff, if they naysay and they could prove and somehow prove the science of naysaying, like my poor mother, my dad's an ER, a physician, and he's like a savant. He's a genius. Like, I never want to fight with him, and he's a brilliant guy. He's pre-Palm Pilot and iPhone. Like, he could open up a physician's desk reference. He could memorize. That guy was a walking physician's desk reference. He's still with us. So they have a medical background, and she's like, well, what about your heart? And I'm like, if I live my life to the fullest, and your theoretical quote-unquote side effect, and I use that term very loosely, if it subtracts a year, would I rather live full up and subtract that year that you theoretically can't prove, that actually has been disproven? You know, I know Jeff did there was a post on it recently through Wittmer, but like whatever the stigma or all the things that people suppose. So wait, so I have to live in hell, or like just live in this eternal suck on that off chance versus living my fullest? And again, we're not talking like we're going to be Mr. Olympia, superhero Captain America, like, but we're going to have the energy to, like, oh, God forbid you look good and, you know, don't have to weigh your food like a psychopath bodybuilder, and actually have energy to play with your 3 kids. And if that goes into your 60s, 70s, 80s, okay, I'd rather live as long as possible at a 9 than at a 10 for like half my life. Like, that's just stupid, you know? So it's just managing that length. And that was a perfect example. It's like, you don't have to weigh your food and you can live your life. I didn't weigh my food at my 15 and I looked like a shredded god, you know, like,
right.
Now I'm in my 40s weighing every pound of tuna going, what's going wrong here? You know, Aging sucks and it doesn't have to, I guess. That'd be my tagline.
Yep. And that's what I was going to ask you. You know, we're getting ready to wrap it up here. We went a little bit longer, but dude, this has been a great conversation.
Sorry. This has been my day.
This is great. This is great. Do you have any last kind of words of wisdom to maybe even, we'll say, even like gentlemen that are, you know, in their middle of their life, they're kind of hitting some plateaus? What do you got?
Well, and I would actually, this would be my one thing I'll amend, is that we talked before we hit record, is men and women, aging sucks, and it doesn't have to be this way. And again, this isn't some reality TV, inject these people with a bunch of stuff behind closed doors to go climb Mount Everest. This is like, I'll use that metaphor of if you're vitamin D deficient, you get on Amazon and order vitamin D. Just because it has a prescription and a needle, it doesn't have to be, quit attributing it to that, because I'll wrap it up with that. Is aging sucks. It's inherently going to suck. Things are going to break. Things are going to quit working. If you lived a life like I've lived, you're going to have full of metal and all that. Why not mitigate the things you can? I can't make, this is so cocky, but like, I can't make my spine full of metal hurt less or be less functional. But I'll be damned if the endocrine system that is aging is falling apart. I can't remedy that a little bit. Sure as hell I will. Like, same as my glasses. Swear to God, I turned 44 and my eyes went to crap. And I need glasses. Why not? Like, it just baffles me. So like, if ego and stigma and all these things or stupid social media, and God bless them, older parents, are keeping you from living the fullest, like, that's on you to like remedy that, because you don't have to age just because I don't know, for some reason, some weird pre-programming we have that we have to be miserable. Like, you shouldn't, I don't have kids, but you shouldn't be limping when you're in your 40s and 50s and miserable and de-energized when you have kids, like, just because you're quote unquote supposed to. And I despise that for men and women, particularly women, because I know there's a lot more stigma to that. So that's my horrible long answer. Like
Doc says, he's not going to be a frail old man. And I'll be damned if I'm going to be a frail old man either, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to be,
exactly.
I'm going to be a 50-year-old, 50, unfortunately, like early 50, mid 50s at my son's high school games. I'm not going to be an old guy that can't get up the bleachers, right?
And that's the world we live in. Look at the standard. Like, and this isn't meant to be like some weird socio-political thing, but look at back in the working man day where like people were on I-beams in New York building bridges, and like those guys, just life forced them to be lean, ripped Spartans into their 70s and 80s, because they were just, like Nebraska farmers. Like my girl's dad, I swear he could still kick my butt, and he's in his late 60s, he scares me to death. And that's just, life made them have to be that way. But there's this weird phase, I think, where there was some sort of acceptance of obese and tired and fat. You're like, oh, he's 50, it's okay. It's like, why? Like, why do you have to be that way? Especially if you have kids. Like, I can barely keep up with my dogs if I was the way I was 4 years ago. Like, that'd be absurd. And I get really passionate about accepting that. Like, acceptance is the first step. This is a meme waiting to happen, but like, acceptance is the first step towards like mediocrity in this, and it shouldn't be that way. So it's bullcrap.
This is when I can say that it won't be me, it won't be you. Join Wittmer Rejuvenation. No, I'm just kidding. But in all seriousness, you have two grown men here telling guys and girls, go get your blood work, take the steps. You will not regret it. You have a 4-year example here. You have a 9+ month example here. I feel the best I've ever felt almost at this point. So
yeah, I agree. The amount of time people waste and put into going to the club or bitching and moaning and taking some Instagram influencer shenanigan, they could have spent that time and money on getting lab work. And if it's not off, my bad. You at least know. Process of elimination. That's the scientific model right there. So
cool. Well, thank you so much, Jeff, for joining us today. You did a great job, man.